Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and/or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and/or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go. So today we want to talk about global population. Do we have enough people or do we need more? Let's cue the intro. All right, dude. So, talking about population, global population, in fact. Now, we'll just use this article just as kind of a
basis.
Well, yeah, like a springboard. For the bigger conversation or bigger debate. It's just a 2-day-old CNN article. Japan denies giving away city to Tanzania after misinformation sparks anti-immigration backlash. Okay. Let's see what kind of misinformation has been spread. The controversy began when Japanese authorities announced a new initiative last week under the Japan International Cooperation Agency, which cooperates with global partners on issues including climate change and healthcare. The new program establishes 4 cities across different prefectures as symbolic hometowns for partner countries in Africa: Mozambique, Nigeria, Ghana, and Tanzania. Okay. So where's the misinformation? What have people gotten wrong? Through exchange events and overseas volunteers, the program aims to address challenges in Africa while revitalizing local communities in Japan, many of which face their own problems of economic and demographic decline. I hate that word, demographic. Demographic.
Demographic decline.
But soon misinformation spread with some local African media reporting, giving the false impression that Nagai City in Yamagata Prefecture would become part of the country of Tanzania. Well, right there, it sounds like we're talking like a major overblowing, I guess, of what sounds like a immigration program. So it doesn't sound like the misinformation was that there wasn't a immigration plan to be set in place, but more that it was going to be so extreme that it was going to almost transfer ownership to a foreign country.
Well, maybe
you know
then
what I mean?
The problem existed amongst the source, that it wasn't clearly laid out.
Well, let me just add this now, too, because they're talking about misinformation. Oh, people are extrapolating the wrong thing out of this. But the Nigerian government itself added to the fervor, claiming on Friday in a now deleted announcement that the Japanese government will create a special visa category for highly skilled, innovative, and talented young Nigerians who want to move to Kisarazu City to live and work. The backlash was swift and furious. So are they saying the Nigerian government was spreading the misinformation then? Well, I mean, I don't know. They're not really getting too specific here. The 4 cities involved in the program found themselves overwhelmed with complaints. For instance, the Imabari officials received about 1,000 emails and 450 phone calls on the issue on Monday. And so it kind of sounds like it maybe wasn't misinformation. It sounds like more like they were going to implement this thing and the Japanese people were kind of pissed off about it and complained so much that they kind of started backpedaling. That's not exactly misinformation then. It's more like we tried to implement something. The people didn't like it, almost as though it was a democracy. Yeah, I know. So that's not really misinformation, though. If you want to implement something, the people have a backlash and you claw it back, saying that the intention was to have a workers program in the certain prefectures that the Japanese people didn't want. It's not really misinformation, right? I mean, things change, right? So to add to that, they say years of low immigration combined with Japan's plummeting birth rate have left gaping holes in the workforce as elderly population swells and the younger population shrinks. So they're saying there's misinformation that there was going to be this foreign worker exchange program, but it sounds like the article is saying that this program was needed because there's not enough workers.
Okay.
So I'm kind of confused now. What exactly was the misinformation spot?
Well, see, I have such a little time to speak. My throat is always clogged up.
Oh, yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, okay, so right off the bat, to use a stupid euphemism, which companies or corporations are experiencing some shortfall in workers?
Well, it's best not to get into specifics.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because
they might actually have to be accountable then to make a statement that there is a shortage of workers.
Because at the same time...
And then why would you get these workers from maybe, let's just say Africa is about maybe 10,000 miles from Japan?
Right.
So wouldn't what's the employment rate in Korea? Just well, offhand, is there not Koreans that would like to maybe fill in that gap? So why are we trying to get Africans? What's the special thing about Africans and their skills?
Well, let's get into that in a second. I just want to cover this though, because they later admit that these far-right Japanese outlets and politicians are trying to build off of the momentum of the Japanese residents who are already facing a host of problems that they fear could get worse, including stagnant wages, high inflation, and let's just assume high living costs. So
okay,
that all those three things listed there doesn't sound like there's not enough workers, because typically wages don't stagnate when you have too little workers.
Right.
You have to
supply
raise
demand principles.
Yeah. If you want to get a worker,
to raise those wages.
Right. So then there's some like logical test
But
that
how
this
about
entire
the global
thing is
demand
failing.
for, let's say, automobiles? Well, let's just assume that we're talking about automobiles, that everybody's got their musical gadgets. I don't know if Japan is a big producer of smartphones, or not smartphones, but Android.
Well, a lot of its industry has gone over to China in the years, and this is another thing that's really bizarre. So we're looking at out of one corner of their mouth, they're talking about everything becoming like AI dominated, robots. I mean, Japan is one of the most advanced countries when it comes to robots and automated. So on one hand, we're looking at a worker crisis because all of these jobs are going away. And then on the other side of their mouth, they're saying the population's aging and they need workers. Well, those two can't be held at the same time.
Every spectrum of human society is aging. If you're really thinking about that, the thing is you're getting an ever-increasing population over 65. Well, that might happen in cycles, but it can't continue to happen.
No. Here's the thing, right? Anytime you have a graph of like population increase and then decrease. See, in the case of Africa, let's just say, take Africa, for example. Let's take even Nigeria as an example. Like Nigeria is seeing exponential growth. If you look at a graph where they were in 1950 compared to like where they are today, their population has been like, boom, shooting to the moon. okay, so what does that do demographically? Well, Nigeria has an incredibly large young population right now. Incredibly large. It's way disproportionate to what would be average. It's hugely on that side because they've been exponentially growing. But if they do not continue to exponentially grow and like double their population every 20 years, they're going to reach a stagnation point and they will become an aging population, right? So now what is the answer to this? Are we saying that because we don't want too many old people in our society, the world is just going to double, triple its population?
We have to
every so often
copulate.
Yeah, we just have to constantly
until we hit critical mass.
And yeah,
what is going to be critical mass?
Well, and this is
hey, you've done a study once on the arable land. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
Well, I
just
don't,
off the top.
I don't
maybe
have
we'll talk about sometime
I don't have
later.
it off the top of my head, but I can say this from the main bullet points, I guess, is that interestingly enough, if you calculate the population and then you divide that by the amount of arable land that's in a country, most countries have the same percentage of arable land. So it's interesting, like Germany, their arable land per citizen is almost identical to that of like France or Canada
or the U.S.
It's really not that. The only country on the
U.S.
planet
had possibly the highest ratio of arable land to population.
Well, higher. Actually higher than Canadians, because a lot of people don't realize we got a lot of tundra, we got a lot of forest.
What do you mean we?
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, it means that there's not as much farmland as people like assume in their mind when they look at a map. But in the States, like enormous tracts of it are nothing but farmland. I mean, some states like Iowa, I think is like it's a huge percentage of the entire state is nothing but. I mean, Oregon has so much farmland. It's like crazy how much farmland they got in Oregon. So I mean, and obviously California, and I mean that's kind of like produces a huge amount of the food. But the point is,
I think the real point is are there too many people on the planet? What would have been an ideal population for the planet?
Well,
so the thing is like, what is the thing?
Well, how about I jump in here?
Yeah.
So, we end up getting is we have two opposing ideas. We have the rich and what they want, and then we have everybody else. Now, you get some of these rich pricks, and they go, well, actually, if you extrapolate from the data, we are reaching a bit of a peak population right now, and we do need to have some sort of curbs to keep our food sustainability. But the reality is that these rich pricks want a bigger population. So on the
that's your premise, anyways.
Well,
I don't know if I really agree with that, but
well, let me place my argument. Okay.
Sure.
I'm gonna pick out a country. Let's take Norway for example. Okay. So what does Norway have? Well, Norway has plenty of oil. They have a high standard of living. They have a high GDP per capita. But they lack two things. They lack a large amount of arable land. And because they lack a large amount of arable land, they also have their population kind of capped out, right? So as far as efficiency goes, as far as wealth goes, the Norwegians are doing great, right? But if you're talking about a
incredible trust fund,
right,
from
a huge, massive
oil.
pile of money, but with all of those things factored in, they're never referred to as a superpower. And the reason why they're never referred to as a superpower is simply because they don't have the population. India has a crap GDP per capita. There's huge amounts of inefficiencies. There's huge amounts of corruption.
But shockingly,
there's amazing.
They're fifth largest GDP in the world?
Because they have a large population, and if they're sitting at a table, India's voice on the global infrastructure carries more weight than the Norwegians, just because they're wielding a large population. You could take it like down to even like smaller numbers. Let's just say you have a guy who's an emperor of a kingdom and he only has 10 people below him, right? He could be an absolute emperor, but if he only has 10 people below him, his power is limited. Now, if you compare that to a guy that's an emperor of China who has like 1.5 billion people below him, it's you can't compare that. And all of the other things you can gain with a larger population, but a larger population gives power. Keep in mind that basically power is labor, right? So like most of our wealth is generated by human labor. So if you don't have that many people as like sitting at the very top of that society, the more population you have, the more wealth you have.
So considering that humans are a resource to the plutocrats,
right?
And they are wealthier than a plutocrat that doesn't really have as much of a human resource.
Right. And then on the other side of it, the earth is a finite resource with finite amount of space. So it's a piece of pie. It's a piece of pie that every time we double our population, our percentage gets cut down. And it's not just our wealth. It's not just how much land we have access to. It's also based down to how much liberty we have. The more populated a place becomes, the more your freedoms and your liberties go down.
Right.
And that's easy to see because you know the type of liberty and latitude you have. If you're out in the boonies where nobody is around you, you could have a big wild party, bonfire, all kinds of stuff. You got a lot of liberty. You take that same person and you cram him into an apartment block where he's surrounded by hundreds of other people, and you're going to start seeing a huge restriction in what he can or can't do. And it's not necessarily like specifically totalitarian, because you realize that the closer you are with people, the more you're surrounded by people, you just can't have certain liberties.
Okay,
because there'll be chaos.
So in all the Orwellian or doublethink, where they at one time will mention all the negative impacts of humanity, they also want, if you're looking at the policy, instead of incentivizing or encouraging population control, they're doing everything to penalize those whose populations have either maintained or slightly declined, like in Europe. Well, basically the West, including Japan.
Yeah.
And they're
any place
penalizing them by bringing in people that are incongruent with their society and their people. It's a purely economic incentives.
Well, and
there's no enrichment that I can see.
Well, and also in the case of mass migration, the biggest incentive is that you don't have any rights, right? So if you have a Japanese person who is ethnically Japanese, born in Japan, the Japanese government can't just go, well, get the hell out, right? You don't want to work at these wages? Get the hell out, right? That person is embedded in that nation.
I think they say
and
a
that
little bit more
nation
politely than that, but
is responsible for that person. But if you get some migrant workers, these people have no rights, right? If they don't follow the line, they don't want to accept those wages, you send their ass back. And so employers love this leverage that they can get over people, where they can basically devalue the average worker by saying, look, we've got these people, we've got almost a limitless amount of these people who are coming from a country where their standard of living is like almost at starvation level, and they're willing to do almost anything, right? We've also stripped them of their legal status and their legal rights,
but at
so
the
that's
same
even
time,
better for us.
All these nations also have their own class of billionaires. So why aren't those billionaires upping the living standards? Why is it placed upon the West to take their surplus population so they can continue to multiply?
Well, there's a lot of illogical stuff happening. Like, we have Doctors Without Borders going to Africa, but then we say, well, we've got a program to bring African doctors into our country to work. But you're like, well,
that's kind of like shipping wheat from China, and then we'll get Chinese wheat. And while they're talking about the carbon impact of all these shipping containers going back and forth, we've seen such an enormous increase in shipping traffic.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, and what we're seeing is that it's not about skin color. It's not about race as much as it is about anybody that has any sort of standard of living. They want to destroy it. Right. And Japan is a perfect example because Japan has some of the highest standard of living in Asia. I mean, no, but I mean, but from what I've seen, Japan and South Korea have been seeing a reduction in their wages in comparison to the type of hyperinflation that's been happening. And most of them are seeing a collapse in their standard of living, not an increase. So why would you put more people and more pressure on that system?
Why would you say we're going to infuse this manufacturing base with labor when they're also talking about the slowing down of manufacturing in the world?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have less and you're going to be happy. So,
and yeah, so
contradictory.
Well, exactly. And so really it comes back to this difference, this dichotomy between the poor people, which having a reduced population would be a good thing for us, which is why there's been a lot of different countries that have chosen not to have enormous families, understanding that there's already a pressure on the amount of housing, the amount of available space, the amount of farmland. Everything is kind of like feeling more tight and restricted. And the only way to loosen that noose is by reducing your population a little bit. You're going to get more liberties. You're going to have more wealth to spread. By increasing the population, you're going to have reduced rights, reduced privileges. The only difference between Canada and Mexico is that we have less of a population. If we had the same population as Mexico, the GDP is the same.
Actually, Mexico's got a higher GDP.
They got a higher GDP. So what would happen to the standard of living?
They should be sitting at the G7 or the G9.
If Canada hits like 100 million people, right, the standard of living in Canada could easily tank completely out. And with already super highly inflated real estate and rental costs, I mean, they're screwed. Right. And this is.
But everybody that's a part of the real estate market are happy to see this supply and demand, or the demand, go up big time.
Right. And look at if I'm at the top of society and I want to just shave off like $1 off of my billion people that are underneath me, I just earned $1 billion by just shaving off $1. All my citizens, they're not going to notice anything, right? $1 is nothing today, right? But that equates to $1 billion for someone that's sitting on the very top and shaving off. I mean, what do you think where Elon Musk first made his money off of PayPal? PayPal is taking like a fraction of each transaction, just a tiny little fee. But because they're doing it at scale with a huge amount of transactions, this creates billionaires, right? And you don't get this in a small nation with a small population. You need to have this giant horde of hungry, open faces wanting to fill their faces, and they're willing to do almost anything to still survive. That's great for those on the very top, especially if they live in castles with large walls to keep the refuse of humanity outside of their little gated community. But it's horrible for everyone else. So 99.999999999% of the population.
Which is ironic because this is what they tell you is going to be your strength. If you're out there competing with, 10,000 other applicants at some menial job, that's to your advantage. Now, when the elite say that diversity is our strength, they're right, because diversity is their strength.
Yeah.
The more fractionalized you can make society, the less cohesion is in there. The less opportunities, the less chance there's going to be torches and pitchforks charging a castle.
Well, let's take Dubai, for example, right? Without mass migration, what would Dubai be, right? Well, how much are you going to pay the United Arab Emiratis to build these high-rises when there's a small population and a fair bit of wealth? You're going to have to pay them $60 an hour to work on a construction crew?
And I don't think that's what they did.
Or you bring in some Indians or Sri Lankans, you burn their passport when they get in, you put them on a little garbage island where you can boat them in and boat them back every 12 hours to do their shift 7 days a week, and boom. Oh, how wonderful. How this wonderful utopia just suddenly spontaneously fucking grew out of the ground. How did this happen?
Well,
slave labor is how it happened.
Basically.
And it didn't end there, because all of that shit that they produced there wouldn't have a market unless you brought in all these rich Europeans and Americans and Canadians and Australians to buy up or to spend a night in their 5-star, 6-star hotel, right? So it's a perfect example of an entire city built on this idea of mass migration, and really, unless you're a part of the privileged class, it is a hellhole. It's an example of the type of elitist tier system where the rich are up here and they're completely disassociated from any of the rabble down below.
And don't succumb to this propaganda bullshit of being a cheerleader for the rich, hoping that somehow their crumbs are going to land in your mouth somehow. This is this is not a wealth that it was created because they were so brilliant or they got so much skill that you don't have.
Well, it's also not a meritocracy.
No, it's
right.
The opposite.
We're talking about the system is built on lies, conniving, and thievery. It is really like a casino, right? So the way that a casino works is like you play, you lose. That's how it works.
No, that's not
you
to say
play,
that
you
there
win, you get the hell out of here. We don't want you playing anymore.
Hey, that's not to say, though, that there isn't people that are reasonably wealthy and well off that earned it, in a justifiable way as opposed to oppressing, exploiting.
Well, yeah, I do think there's a cap, though. There's definitely a cap of how much you can make legitimately before you're basically a part of the system, the evil empire, right, as it were. Because this is the thing. We always like to look to the past. They're completely happy to apologize for what our ancestors did 150 years ago. But when we bring up slavery that's happening right now, today, they go, yeah, that's kind of bad. Anyways, how about we forget about that?
No. Speaking of slavery, let's go back to this one nugget of truth is that weren't you saying that of all the data that could be digitalized on the public records, that the slave owners or those that actually did own slaves, which was maybe amounted to 10,000 people, you could actually...
I think it was a lot less than that. Yeah. I think it was 2,000 people. But so the context for this is in 1833, slavery became illegal in Britain and its colonies. And so because, you don't want to, ruin the lives of the rich, the British government was taking its citizens' tax dollars, putting it to good use to pay back all those slave owners for per head
what they lost
and because rich people always want to get to the trough of social welfare system, surprisingly, basically almost every single slave owner wanted to get recompense for the loss of his slaves. And so this was a public document that was made because it's you're using tax dollars to pay these people. So each person that was a slave owner in the entirety of the British Empire only amounted to like a little over, I think, 2,000 entries or something. It was like 2,400 entries. And so they're all itemized on this document. Now, out of all the different documents that the I don't know whether it's a congressional library or what they call it in Britain, but it's their national library. Out of all the different ones that they've wanted to digitalize so that you got a record of it, it's the one document that they only have the physical copy. Right. Now, because it is a public document, you have a right, like for a Freedom of Information Act, to request for this document. But
just don't publish the names. You probably have to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
But you do have to be physically at the library and make the request physically. And I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard of anybody actually gaining access to this document and basically doxing all these ex-slave owners. So it kind of shows with all these empty platitudes and apologies.
What they want to do is they want to spread that responsibility. They want to deflect attention from themselves.
Yeah.
And make it a collective. Well, once again, they're collectivists and socialists when it's convenient for them to do so.
I think that we've all basically had slaves at one point or another.
Anyways, I think that's enough.
Not the Irish.
No,
not the
Poles,
the
Scots, or
not
the
Welsh,
Slovakians,
not the Czechs.
Well, I don't know about the Scots. Maybe they did.
The Scots. The Scots were kind of in that.
They basically
I think
realm. Ran Canada.
Oh yeah,
while the English ran the States.
Sometimes when you enslave a person, the progeny becomes kind of cold-hearted and.
Anyways, those are
cynical.
Those are the cold hard facts. A little food for thought for today.
I mean, basically,
if we're not accurate in that, you can make a comment and correct us.
But you better make a good comment.
Because
he's coming for you.
He's going to come back, guns blazing.
So just the big summation is that population increase for the little guy.
Well, the mass of humanity, we're talking about probably at least 95% of humanity. So we're not talking about just the little guy. We're talking about everybody. Yeah. Basically, it's not a good thing to see, no more than it would be if you were in a family of 10. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of anybody that came out of, excluding myself, that came out of a really large family going, man, we had everything. We had the attention of both parents almost all the time. I mean, that's not even possible if you have 6 pets, 6 dogs. How are you going to give them all attention at the same time? They're just going to have this collective common denominator of attention by the pet owner. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, so
and with resources, finances being extremely limited to
everything is finite. Right? On this planet, it's
arable land is finite.
It's a finite resource.
If you well manage it, you could actually do some reclamations of the desert. But this would actually take intelligent people that actually really do want to improve life on Earth.
Well, yeah, but here's another thing, though. There's 2 places on the planet that I should add this as a little
caveat.
Yeah. The 2 places on the planet that actually do have an extremely high amount of arable land per capita is Russia and Ukraine. So, like, for example, I think
that
it's
might
like
explain a
it's
few
like
things.
10 hectares per person in Russia, and in Canada, and I think in the U.S. it's maybe 3. So it's like 3 times the amount of arable land in Russia. And not only is it arable land, but it's like high tier arable land where they don't actually need to use a whole crap load of fertilizers to get things growing. It's like they have thousands of years worth of this topsoil that streamed down from the Urals. So, and then Ukraine was the other like breadbasket. So right now, all that farmland is scorched earth. So like food stability is it's going to be a major issue.
So if we
coming
can't have
forward,
it, we'll destroy it. Kind of philosophy.
Right, but I mean, it's possible.
Well, maybe
it's
they just
possible
wanted to hopscotch over to Russia and take their resources.
I mean, might as well speculate, but it is highly possible that the reason why this war is happening is because of food instability.
Right.
I mean, they might not want to admit that, but the war in Ukraine could be entirely centered around trying to claw away from Russia the influence of being able to control a huge amount of the exportable food around the world.
That all sounds fine and dandy, but then why would the Dutch government be purposely shutting down, which the Netherlands is also a fairly fertile, arable, with extremely smart farming practices. So why would they want to be shutting down and penalizing farmers for nitrogen, which is an absolute necessary gas in the soil for growing? And same thing happening in England. So you wonder, why would they be trying to destroy their own food sources? Is it to just basically say to the population, I'm sorry, we've got no food, but if you want food, here's a rifle, go over to Russia and kill them. We're got to take over their land. I mean, you know, this is just a possible geopolitical move.
No,
these pricks think these things out well in advance. This has to happen, that has to happen, these have to happen. All of a sudden, I'm getting very,
fascist.
Precise in describing what needs to happen.
I think that the problem is that these pricks, it's kind of like in Rome, where there was a certain amount of time where being in the prime position in the seat of power in Rome ended up eventually corrupting the minds of these senators, and all they were doing is going around having orgies with their slaves, and they were just living debauched, hedonistic lives, and they weren't really capable of putting some good plans forth to sustain the empire in a good way. It was built on such a solid structure of marble pillars
that it just
lasted so long.
Yeah, it took a while to destroy it. It's almost in the same way that the good old USA just happened to have so many things going for it.
Yeah.
You talk about all these waterways like the Mississippi, Missouri. You talk about this huge coastline, and you talk about this ideal sort of latitude positionally.
Yeah.
And then the Great Plains, combine that all together, you've got, sort of potentially a utopia.
Yeah.
Although I don't think too many people are feeling right now that they're in a utopia, because you have this parasite class that are incapable of really managing. The only thing they manage is their own greed to get more and figuring out how to get more.
Yeah.
All there is, they're just like giant human vacuum cleaners.
Yeah. I mean, and so we're either dealing with people that are incredibly evil and malevolent and sadistic, masochistic maybe even, or they're just straight up retards.
No, I think there's got to be a bit of sadism absolutely in this as an entertainment value. Let's take some Africans and throw them into Japan and see what happens.
Right.
Just as for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Yeah, yeah.
You see a few rapings, probably more than just a few rapes going on, because these people are very virile and they're ready to populate the the planet and add more.
I think I'm going to be the one that finishes our videos from now on. All right,
That's
guys.
why I probably don't say much.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't you keep it bottled in there?
No, it's only
Anyways.
a possibility. It's just,
Hey, no need to backtrack now. The point is, bigger population, bad for you. Bigger population, good for the elitist pricks. And that's basically the takeaway. So next time you see an article that's talking about, oh, we have an aging population,
right.
go tell them to fuck off, because there's
and
no...
when lately with all of this bringing together of humanity into the West, when have we sung Kumbaya? I don't remember that great big festival of humanity coming together throughout Europe, North America.
Is that how you want to leave it now?
No,
That's...
you can put.
Well, I thought I just put a bow on it, and then you stepped on that bow, and you crushed the gift of a good conclusion with your big giant clown feet.
All right.
So, anyways, just refer to what I said, ignore what he said.
Yeah,
at the last
ignore what I
bit.
said.
All right, we're not doing one on Friday because it's my mom's
there's a birthday in the family.
Oh yeah. And so, yeah, we'll see you on
maybe
Monday.
they'll do one Saturday. Well, we'll see how we're feeling. There's plenty to say. Some might say, these guys don't have much to say.
Maybe it would be good to just stop at a certain point
point right
instead
now.
of going, here's a summation, this is over now, and then you just come in, hey, got some more there.
But furthermore, all right, ciao.
Bye.